Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cameron Ross. I'm with McKee and Door Company. I'll have to be honest, when I was setting this meeting up with Danny, I didn't know what to expect, knowing that it was not going to be on Halloween Day. And let me just tell you, Torty Gallus has exceeded and gone above all of my expectations. So thank you very much. This is outstanding. Once again, Cameron Ross, we got two pieces of literature in front of you that I kind of want to direct us to initially to kind of begin. The black document is not what we're going to focus in on too much. It's just a product catalog, basically just trying to sell you on some doors. The yellow document is what I want to focus in on to begin with. This is a document that was written by a certified ICC instructor who teaches code officials across the country out of this document. Basically, he wanted to focus in on areas of the code where there are issues for architects in the creation of open design. So I wanted to compile this document and focus in on those specific areas, and I'm going to run you through this document so you folks can use it as a tool, throw it in your desk to negate having to go through the IBC and everything. So if you flip with me to the table of contents, I'll run you through a few sections here, and then we'll kind of get started. So you see the red letter items in here. So the red letter items are basically the areas that are discussed in here, and obviously gets more specific beneath that. So whether it's elevator separation, vertical opening separation, occupancy separation, those are the areas that are discussed. And once again, beneath that, it gets more specific as you go. And for those who are listening in, I'd be glad to get a copy of this. This is a 2015 version. I also have a 2012 version for kind of the DC area. This is obviously based off the 2012, 2015 IBC. Be glad to get you guys a copy or whatever. So once again, these red letter items talking about the areas of discussion gets more specific as you go down. So turn with me, if you would, to page 19. I'm just going to, once again, run you through these so we get an idea what we're talking about here. I randomly picked these, but nonetheless, page 19 talks about pedestrian walkways and tunnels. I was in DC recently, saw one of these. That's my inspiration for talking about it. So the layout of this is uniform across each chapter. It's the same exact layout, once again, so it's easily understandable and digestible, everything as well. The sand-colored box basically talks about, in layman's terms, what we're speaking on, what a pedestrian walkway and tunnel is. And beneath that, fire and life safety concerns with those pedestrian walkways and tunnels, and then the code requirements with those. So that's going to be the charging languages in the IBC. It's, again, very brief, very understandable, and kind of condenses that into the honed-in components of that. So then we flip to page 20. We'll see those code requirements continue on the next page at the top. And then the meat and potatoes, the design solution. So obviously it wouldn't be this kind of a presentation if we didn't apply this product line to a book that we produce, right? So nonetheless, these are just a number of different ways that this manufacturer is used to combat these individual code issues. So below we see just a vertical coiling door with swing egress doors, your standard 307 doors on the either end. So this is at BWI Airport, just up the road a little ways, where they were connecting a parking garage with it was a sky bridge connectivity to the terminal. So once again, that's just one way they went about doing that. Limited impact on the design. We'll dive into that more in depth in a few minutes. And then on page 21, on the top of that, we see just your standard accordion fire door. This is of the Denver Art Museum, just a walk bridge that they need separation through. That accordion door comes in two different panel sizes to kind of conform with the pocket depths and the different requirements for your design. So once again, unique application. And then on the bottom of 21, we see just a side coiling door without egress. Basically, it's just a vertical coiling door that's tipped on its side. The coil box is housed in either side of the assembly that you worked with. That was at a Wells Fargo bank as well. They wanted to connect the skywalk to the second floor. So just a couple of different issues. And then on page 22, if you flip with me, begins this useful section. Typically, back in college, I would skip over this kind of stuff, but the inquiry and discussion section is actually very pertinent to you folks' discussion for your understanding of what has been discussed in the last chapter, because it opens up the dialogue. This is code commentary by the individual who wrote this, and then beneath that, the questions. So the questions could be broaching areas where you folks may not have thought of, and this type of usage of the code, and just kind of jogs your memory of what was discussed. So very useful, very pertinent. So now we're going to flip to 37 as well. So on 37, this is the vertical opening separation, and this is the atrium section. Now, I know you folks, I'm sure, deal with atriums all the time, and I feel like I do. I see them in roadside bathrooms nowadays. They want to put atriums everywhere, openness, free-flowing, all that fluffy stuff. That's great and everything. But with that comes a lot of code requirements, right? So on 37, we see the sand-colored box. What is an atrium? The fire and life safety concerns with those atriums, and then the code requirements beneath those. So whether it's your smoke evacuation system, your minimum Class B finishes on your walls, your deluge, et cetera, kind of goes on and on. Very condensable, easily understandable on page 37. You flip over to page 38. All those code requirements, of course, they continue, right? They continue on up the top, and then beneath that, design solutions. So here we see just a side acting door with two swing egress doors in the middle of the assembly to combat that specific atrium condition. We'll talk about that assembly more in depth in the presentation. Very unique application I'd like to discuss. And on 39, we see a horizontal fire shutter. So this is it's like a vertical coiling door that's tipped on its side and put on its stomach. And then it goes across the tabletop plane. It separates two individual floors into two compartments. So typically we put them in these atrium applications. Really it mediates a lot of the cost and really adds a lot of cost benefit from the owner's perspective in combating these atrium setups. So that's page 39. We'll talk about that more in depth as we go along. And then 40, we see just another side coiling door, but without egress this time. So this is a massive application, about 147-foot long door that was biparted to meet the requirements in this specific door. A lot of unique assemblies, a lot of different requirements here that were helped out with these assemblies. And then 41, inquiry and discussion begins again. I'll run you through one more section, I promise. Page 90 we'll go to. I apologize, 92. Working out of the 2015. 92, please. So obviously there's a lot of, for myself, I'll speak to myself, maybe folks are probably a lot smarter than I am. Nonetheless, firewalls, fire barriers, all these kind of definitions kind of got muddled to me. I didn't really understand it. But this section, once again, is just able to delineate what the differences are between firewalls, fire barriers. It talks about those, the definition of those, the fire ratings, opening protection, design notes, and then applications. So where you can use these things and all the auxiliary information beneath. Has that for firewalls, fire barriers, then you flip the page to 94, fire partitions, same setup, smoke barriers, and then smoke partitions. I've got another presentation that I like to do. It speaks on the fire-rated fabric and the smoke-rated fabric as well. Talk to Danny after. Hopefully we can come back in and do that. Once again, not a sales pitch here, just a resource document. We've never been in this firm, so once again, love to drop that off. Just throw it in your desk whenever you're dealing with these kind of issues. Really, I'm sure it will help you out. And as well, once again, those individuals who are listening in, be glad to ship you a copy or a couple of these, 2012, 2015, either one. So with that, I'm gonna begin. So opening doors to design opportunities that we're talking about today. Let me get out of the way a little bit. Is this thing working? There we go. So obviously, you got to follow us on social media. Got a great social media individual. So McKee, and obviously registered AIA. Please sign and get your credits. It's also a copyrighted presentation as well. So the challenge is what we're looking at today. And the challenge is obtaining this open design. This is the Husky Union building out in Washington State University. So the goal is to get up this open design. And from an architect's perspective, we see a lot of different code things going on here. We see an atrium, we see a lot of open space, we see glass. So just a lot of different things going on. But you couldn't tell based off of this diagram, this picture, but this entire building is being protected utilizing opening protectives. So the challenge, once again, is maintaining within the parameters of IBC while getting that look and making sure that these fire and life safety issues are not compromised. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Some objectives here to begin with. Differentiate between firewalls and fire barrier walls. There is a difference. In fact, understand the regulatory standards of opening protectives, the code requirements that drive the placement of these, and just how the direct applicability between fire and life safety concerns and open design. So with that, we'll kind of dive right in. So obviously, we're talking about 2012, same exact thing. Firewalls, fire barriers, what we're talking about as well. And I've got that other presentation that speaks on those. I'd love to come in and do. So some definitions for you as well. We're talking about firewalls, obviously. We see the fire resistance rated to 2, 3, and 4 hours. They're continuous to or through the floor or roof. I'm sure everyone's seen those movies, Spider-Man. Well, it is Halloween. The Spider-Man or Batman or something. The jutting out portions along the rooftop, those are ordinarily going to be your firewalls. So once again, they transcend each individual floor to the top of the roof. So those are going to be your jutting out portions. And then they're structurally independent. So upon the collapse of a building, in theory, the firewall is supposed to remain intact. So if the rest of the building falls, that firewall is supposed to be still standing. So the primary difference between those and fire barriers, obviously the ratings are a little bit differently, 1, 2, 3, and 4 hours. But also we see the continuity is maintained. So that's basically within each individual space. Deck to deck, lid to lid. Those are kind of the differences. So section 716 of the IBC talks about what the requirements are for opening protectives. And I think common belief would tell you that, well, opening protectives are only supposed to stop the flash through or flame through in a fire situation. And you'd be correct, that's the only goal. But some architects, some individuals believe that opening protectives are supposed to stop the heat transfer. The reality is these doors, rolling steel products, fabric, they transmit heat all day long. And that's not what the UL testing is for. So they can transfer heat all day long as they conform with the 6 requirements, whether it's smoke activated, has to be labeled by a certified national testing facility. It goes on and on. There's 6 fundamental requirements, has to be labeled once again. So all these issues, but not it's stopping the flash through and flame through. That's what an opening protective is designed to do. So once again, fresh open design, we're looking at this openness, this opulence, this beautiful interior, and coupling that with the latest technology. And if we're able to do that, we can have full compliance with the IBC and make sure, once again, those fire and life safety issues are of no concern. And we're going to talk about some technology now that drives the placement of these. Stop me at any time if anyone has any questions regarding this product line. It can kind of be fuzzy for a few minutes, but I hope to kind of clear up anything. So we see a vertical coiling fire door to begin with. So this would standardly take about 16 to 24 inches of headroom. And obviously this is governed drop. It's dropped from the ceiling and it's governed by the motor. We see the 2 swing egress doors on either end. Those are your standard 3070. So in a fire condition or a fire situation, those swing egress doors are going to swing into the opening, and the rest of the vertical coiling seal is going to drop, and it's going to fill in this portion. And we see the bottom bar here. That bottom bar is going to set the entire assembly in place, locks the mechanism in its entirety. We see those labels attached affixed to the bottom bar. That's where the labels are always supposed to be, and you need that label to be qualified as a door. It's a 3-hour rated assembly, so it passes the UL 10B host trim, the whole 9 yards. It's a 3-hour assembly. And also you see these the 2 powder-coated doors, once again, need about 7-inch recess along the adjacent wall there, and about 3 inches for the side guide assembly. Very limited impact on the design itself. And those mag hold doors, they can also be powder-coated, as they did here, to match the interior wood finish of this hotel kind of spa entrance. Maintains that openness. So 99.9% of the time we're going to be looking at this. Then in a fire condition, that's what we're going to be looking at. All fail-safe mechanisms as well. One of those requirements in section 716 is that it's fail-safe, right? So it drops without the intervention of electric or power to the door. Fire alarm, smoke alarm, or power outage, that door is going to fall. So okay, we see those doors, and we obviously see that in conjunction with this. We see a large majority of doors here. The biggest difference here, obviously 16 to 24 inches in the head. It's going to be about 9 feet. Now, before you get mad at me, I typically people laugh out of architecture firms and talk about 9 feet of headroom, especially in the DC area. Nonetheless, the benefit of this door, despite the 9 feet, needs 7 obviously for the door and 2 for the coil box. You can have as many doors in here as the opening will allow, which is a definite benefit when you have a large occupant load. I think the largest that we've ever seen is probably about 18 swing egress doors out in Cincinnati. They need a large occupant load in a casino out there. Once again, they had the headroom requirements. They had the very limited side room. In this school application, they had it as well. So that's what you kind of work with there. So we talked about it in the atrium condition. This is that side coiling door. So it's a fire door, obviously another 3-hour rated assembly. Difference is you just tip that coil box on the side, and then in a fire situation that comes across in the opening. Using an idea that's called captured spring force. So we were talking about how they're fail-safe, right? So this door utilizes that captured spring force. Everyone's seen those toy cars, right, with the springs where you put it on a table side, you pull it back, all those springs wound within. The same exact mechanism here. So all that tension is wound in either spring. In this case, in either coil box on either end, since it's a biparted unit because it was so massive, and the natural position of the door is closed, but all that tension, once again, is housed in those coil boxes, sends a break in the motor, and then once again, the motor governs it as it goes at about 6 to 9 inches per second. Very reasonable, not a guillotine, Temple of Doom status. It's a very, very reasonable rate. The other benefit is that you don't see a floor track here. It's because there's not one that's required. Obviously, egress wasn't necessitated by this application, but they wanted to maintain this openness. Is that I think the ARIA or the Cosmopolitan, one of the two in Vegas. There's a 5-star restaurant here, one that I certainly wasn't eating at. I was in an In-N-Out Burger. But nonetheless, they had like a wood cladding finish. They had this glass here. They wanted to maintain that openness so you could look within the interior of that restaurant, openness in the atrium. There's a lot of different things that were solved here. Obviously, we do need the head track, but you can't really tell what the head track looks like because it blends in with that mosaic up top. Design team did a fantastic job here, blending that in, disguising it, making it look very, very beautiful within the interior of this. Difference between that last one and this one, obviously, is that standard 3070 egress door on the leading edge here. Now, if that door is at the back edge of the assembly, it could turn an 18-inch radius, which is a definite benefit, opens up design opportunities once again. This is back at that Husky Union building. This is just one of the usages of these opening protectives to kind of comply with the fire and life safety concerns there. Obviously, it's a powder-coated door, matches that white interior finish of the building itself. Very, very useful. That door on the front edge as well kind of complies with the egress requirement as well. I told you we'd get back into this. This is that similar atrium condition. So obviously we see the atrium and we see the size of this door, massive unit. And that's one of the reasons why, you see kind of the disguised picture here, but you don't see the floor tracker on there because this assembly would actually indeed need one. And I'll tell you why. Firstly, because it's greater than 14 feet in height. Doors greater than 14 feet in height, you need a floor track. Has more than one swing egress door there. It has two, needs that rigidity. And lastly, there's a lot of positive and negative air pressure or airflow going in and out of there. So obviously that would knock the door off of its track. So being able to have that, they needed the floor track for those three reasons. Once again, it negated the have to use fire-rated glass here. The sliding steel comes across and it covers that glass effectively, provides that 3-hour separation that would be needed, that UL 10B separation that's needed. And it negates that usage of fire-rated glass. I'm sure everyone's spec'd out fire-rated glass at some point in time. It's astronomical in price. So I'm preaching to the choir telling you folks that. So once again, just one design option that you can work with that can kind of work with your design. All these product lines, we've done it time and time again with architects and be able to use steel products in some kind of a litany of ways to be able to negate using fire-rated glass. So that's just one application where it was used. Here we see a side sliding fire door. Once again, that accordion folding mechanism, the same exact one. So there was no egress in this application, so there's no door within that assembly. It's just your standard push paddle that you have there. Two different panel sizes are, once again, able to work with the pocket depth. So whether you have a narrow pocket but a deep pocket, or a wide opening but not so deep, able to conform 7 and a 14-inch panel to work with. They're going to be about 9.5 and 15.5 inches depending on the door. So once again, a lot of opportunities here, be able to work around the design and the requirements that needed. This is at an art gallery in Miami, so they obviously powder coated that door. I think they would be going against their fundamental principles if they didn't powder coat a door, make the interior look all the better, even in a fire state. Who knew? So this is an I-2 situation. They went with this accordion door, but all with the swing egress door in the middle. Driving force behind that swing egress door was at the AHA, obviously that lovely individual. He thought that the swing egress door was more intuitive in a fire situation. Didn't want that push paddle, didn't want to have any thought process behind it. So no problem, no issues there. Just put the standard 3070 right at the edge of the assembly. They had plenty of room to house that. They also used this door as just like a closing door. After hours, they were able to use that as a security door as well. Just another opportunity, kind of work with two functions, serve one application, one door, serving two functions here. Now we're getting back to that horizontal shutter that I said we speak on. So this is at the Prada building, another place I certainly don't shop. Nonetheless, this is in Beverly Hills. They wanted to maintain this openness. They had a large-scale project here. They wanted to maintain that openness, so they went with this horizontal fire shutter, negated the use of having a lot of those different things, whether it's smoke evac, reducing that. I've heard that the smoke evac alone can pay for itself and maintenance costs alone in 3 to 5 years. I was talking about the minimum Class B finishes on the walls, your deluge, reduced travel distances, obviously sprinkler. They go on and on, basically. And what I'm telling you is that this shutter has no issue getting passed. My colleague and I, we go around and do these presentations, and he's been with this manufacturer for quite some time and has never had any issue getting this passed. So once again, opens up a lot of design opportunities, typically a lot of room within your designs to house this assembly. So it just opens up the opportunities once again. So recapping the technology section, we saw a lot of different doors, a lot of different mechanisms and assemblies and different usages. So I guess the biggest thing is that we don't accommodate. Ordinarily, we not only have one door, but typically 2 or 3 doors. Kind of work with you folks' designs, whatever you're working with, your size requirements, the size of the door itself, the opening, et cetera, et cetera. You typically don't have to make any compromises with that. Glad to talk to you regarding any project that you're working on. We could probably take a look at it, and I think that's the beauty of this product line. So now we're going to talk about case studies for these firewalls. So firewalls in Section 706, they have obviously 3 fundamental principles. Whether it's we obviously want to talk about allowable area to begin with. That's Chapter 5. Chapter 7 in the IBC, we're talking about separation. Then we're going to need egress to that separation in Chapter 10. So those build off of each other, and those are the fundamental driving principles for those firewalls. And then firewalls, talking about the opening protection, the ratings, obviously 90 minutes and 3 hours here. So I'm going to pitch it back to you folks. I know it's a large setting and it might be a little hard, but once again, what are your options if your design exceeds the allowable area requirements? A couple of different ways. What would the code say, or what would you folks do? One or the other. There are a few different ways to answer this, and there isn't just one. Any thoughts? Come on now, I'm patient. I'm very patient. I saw that food get set up, you know? I saw it for a long time.
You mean you split the project into 2 buildings and you have a firewall?
Exactly, you pegged it. You know, they'd say by the IBC, they say the easiest thing is just to separate the structures, right? Build 3 separate structures, then you don't have anything to worry about. But exactly what you said, you could increase the construction type, really expensive. You could sprinkle it out to some square footage there. The reality is we could be able to put 2 separate firewalls in there and be able to create 3 buildings under 1 roof by code. Opens up design opportunities. And once again, utilizing this principle, these firewalls can really conform with the design requirements and such. We're going to talk about some scenarios where they use that exact principle to work around those conditions. So the firewalls, once again, the existing construction, this is in Vegas for once again, the existing construction with this mall and retail space. A lot of open shops, you know, we have Dan Taylor Loft and different things going within that mall. But the new construction was this hotel, and the owner of the building wanted that free-flowing exchange between each building. Didn't want to have to put drywall and swing hinge door in there and miss out on the opportunities of being able to go from the hotel lobby into the retail space. But the AHJ said, hey, look, you need a 3-hour separation there. And due to 3 individual headroom, side room requirements, it looked like it was a no-go. But nonetheless, we kind of worked around it and figured our way out. So off to the left, we see a vertical coiling fire door. In the middle, we see that vertical acting with the 9 feet of headroom. And off to the right, we see a side sliding unit. So be able to navigate, not a lot of headroom or side room off to the left, ton of headroom, no side room in the middle, and then a lot of pocket depth off to the right. And these doors in a fire condition, they're cutting the power to the doors, they come to this. And then by code, they're designated as 2 individual structures. Once again, opens up that design area. It's a massive ball. I was walking through it. I got tired going from the entrance to where this application was. So a big mall, but they were able to open up the opportunities with once the allowable area had been exceeded. So once again, 3 different mechanisms, 3 different applications, and 3 different doors to work with this one design. And the owner obviously was livid with excitement.
I have a question about
sure.
that one. Is that less than 25% of the length of the firewall?
So yes, but yeah, because the mall was so large and was so in distance, it was, yeah.
And so this is a question that we dealt with on one of our jobs recently. Is that perimeter measured all along that wall, no matter where it jogs and zags, or you see that per break-in intersection?
Yeah, ordinarily it's just where as long as the wall continues along, that's what it's considered as the wall.
So around that corner, it didn't matter.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah, once again, any questions, thank you. Very welcome. So the existing construction, similar situation. This is on the older side of Vegas, on the outskirts of the town. They had just a casino, obviously. They had the casino situation. They wanted to build on the theater because they weren't getting the kind of traffic in the casino that they once had or that they were expecting. They wanted to build the theater to generate more revenue, people walking in and out of there. But they needed that 2-hour separation firewall. So once again, they wanted this free. Obviously, you see the Pirates of the Caribbean there. It's an old slide, clearly. Nonetheless, same application. They wanted to be able to go through there without any drywall and swing hinge door. Wanted to maintain that openness, make sure that you go from the casino into the theater without any problems, right? Then with that vertical acting door, the large amount of occupant load. They had the headroom requirements, not a lot of side room, able to work with. This is obviously a pre-existing construction. They're able to work around, be able to build this door within the setup that they were working with. Then we're going to talk case studies for the fire barriers. These are going to be the majority of your walls that you deal with. Firewalls are less so. The fire barriers are seriously the meat and potatoes. Opening protection fire radius 45 to an hour, 90 minutes, and then the 3 hours. So I don't know about in Maryland, our offices are in DC, and I know in DC, or you talk about elevator lobbies, architects are like, oh, what are you talking about? Elevator lobbies is just one way that they went around having to smoke rate or the opening at the individual hoistway. So there are a lot of different code requirements. I'm not an expert in code, I wholly admit, but nonetheless, I think once it transcends greater than 4 stories, you have to do something with the openings, the individual openings. And I think smoke has to do with one of those. So here they went with the elevator lobby to kind of conform. So they biparted an accordion door. You see the red pocket doors, those are going to house the unit. Those aren't fire rated, but nonetheless, those are the only things that you're going to see within the opening when the doors open. And then that door meets in the middle with the male and female joint. Now that's just one way that they enclose the shaft there. Another way that they enclose the shaft here is the swing egress doors off of one of the first slides in the technology portion. Those doors swing 180 degrees into the opening to be able to one assembly to combat 2 individual hoistway openings. We powder coated the interior doors as well, matched that kind of greenish, whitish, off-white color. Another accordion door that they used here, one assembly working with 2 individual hoistway openings. And you can't see it, but obviously on the other side of the door, you're going to see this paddle on either hoistway opening, once again, to conform with the egress operation. Now we're looking at exit access stairway here. AHJs, we're touched on those, obviously very, very driving factor, very determining force within the passing of a building. And that's what he or her dealt with here, really enforced their rule and reign, but in a very unique application. We were talking about the psychological state that was the driving force. This is an exit access stair, so it's obviously not within the intended path of egress. But with the designers, they knew that the students at University of Nevada, Las Vegas would be using this exit access stair as the primary means of going within transcending the different floors of the building. So the AHJ said, look, I know we ordinarily can have just one opening protective or protection at one of those individual floors at a 3-story condition, no problem at all. But the issue was that since this is an exit access stair, they wanted to maintain protection within that stair at each individual floor. And that was due to a psychological state called panic memory. Any of you folks ever heard of panic memory before? Basically, just you're going to go out the way you came in, right? So I exhibited this when I was at my corporate office in New York, and we had a fire condition the day after I was hired, and we had been talking about this concept. Fire alarm goes off. There wasn't a fire in the building. I walk out of my building. I parked off to the right, one of the exits of the hotel, and I ran down that hallway. I didn't walk. I ran. I did not. And that was just the way that I'd come in. I exhibited that exact characteristic here, that exact mental state. And that thought process was the driving force for this AHJ, saying, look, the students are going to be walking into that exit access stair 99.9% of the time. So if in fact a fire does happen, God forbid, they're going to be protected within that stairway. So they went with protection at each individual floor, whether it's a vertical coiling door without egress on the left, and on the back edge over there, we see a vertical coiling door with that swing egress door that swings in 90 degrees. They went with this on each individual floor. Once again, that same application, that same usage. And I just want to direct your attention once again to these labels along the affixed to the bottom bar, which is one of those requirements of those opening protectives. Once again, very unique driving force behind that, but that's just what that AHJ said. There's no problem getting those 3-hour rated assemblies in there. It's another exit access stair, because they went with a biparted accordion door that created that protection at one of those individual floors. The interior exit stairs, these are going to be the ones that are obviously in the designated path of egress. They went the side sliding unit that obviously comes across in the opening with that door on the back edge, and you see the turning of the 18-inch radius exhibited here perfectly. I have a video that I'll show that shows this mechanism exactly. Turns that 18-inch radius, meets in the middle with the male and female joint. They're able to house all of the unit, the assembly in these 2 walls. And that egress door is also on the other side as well. Once again, another design opportunity. So we're back at UNLV, and they wanted to maintain their LEED silver certification in their science building with this design. They had a 4-story light shaft, and they wanted to be able that light to be able to go through each individual floor. But once again, they had that issue of the atrium. So they went with that horizontal shutter at 2 individual floors to compartmentalize, be able to work around the design. Didn't want any separation, but they were able to maintain that openness of the atrium so that light was able to drop down and be able to shed light on the entire building. This is the underside of one of those applications, just to kind of give you a different orientation. It's back at that Prada building, slides across that opening, and a fire condition on power hours, fire alarm or smoke alarm. So we're looking at corridor application. I don't know how much healthcare you folks do. Nonetheless, this is at an I3. This is that same accordion door with the door on the leading edge, the 307 door. They wanted to maintain this clean corridor here. So they went with that accordion with the door on the leading edge, able to use it as a service door. Again, not an expert in code. I do know that if a gift shop is greater than 500 square feet, you have to fire rate the opening with 1-hour fire barrier construction. They had a large amount of headroom here in this gift shop. It's actually right down the hallway from that last slide. So they went with that vertical acting door to maintain that clean corridor, and they just housed that 307 within the middle of the application and the whole assembly up top in that gift shop. The mixed use and occupancy separation, we're not going to delve too deeply in. I am going to show you a few applications though. Once again, accessory occupancy, separated occupancies. We're going to focus in on number two, separated occupancies. So we're back at, I think at the ARIA. I get all these casinos. There's too many of them in Vegas. So we're back at the ARIA. It's an opulent building, beautiful structure, not a straight edge in there. And they had, all these open mall, retail space, hotel occupancies. Then they had a Lamborghini down here. So, there's so much crazy stuff going on. Nonetheless, the owner of the building wanted to maintain, I don't know if anyone knows, I guess don't speak up. So we got a railroad tracks or a train that connects each individual casino in town. So once you get off that train, you're on the train platform, as obviously it's designated as the A3. And then we see all the multiple occupancies down beneath. Owner of this building, kind of like the last individual with the firewall application, he or she wanted to make sure that once you get off that train, you're able to look down and see the beautiful mall down there, see all the places that you're going to be spending your money, quite frankly, open up all that to the public. 1-hour occupancy separation was needed here. So once again, you want to get off that train, you want to look down at this glass, you want to go down and see that mall, that open area. This is what they went with. This is the train platform. The train would run along here. You get off that platform, you see this glass, large angled glass panels. They went with just standard vertical coiling fire doors obviously without egress. So drops from the ceiling, it's made at that individual angle, so it's able to conform with the standards. Obviously, we typically over-engineer our doors, 3-hour rating for a 1-hour rated assembly that was needed. And we see the vertical coiling door on the back edge over there, the standard 307-hole mag hole door. So that was just one whole way. Once again, negated the use of having to use fire-rated glass here, which is a definite benefit. Opens up budgetary opportunities from an architectural standpoint, owner's standpoint as well. And they powder coated that door as well. I guess they had plenty of money to go around. Mixed use and occupancy separation, once again, we're still focusing on that. The R1 occupancy obviously was the hotel lobby. And then we see the restaurant, casino, amusement, a lot of different stuff going on. It's Vegas, right? There's always something going on. 1-hour occupancy separation fire barrier was needed between the two. I like to call this the quintessential slide of my presentation. Okay, kind of forget the carpet. The carpet's bad, I personally think. I'm not a big fan of the design of that carpet, but nonetheless, the marble interior finish of that hotel, they wanted to maintain open. You wanted to maintain that you go from the casino into the interior of that hotel without any drywall swing hinge here. Didn't want to see any of that. You didn't want to miss out on that opportunity, especially once you drop so much money on the interior of this marble, beautiful hotel lobby. You don't want to miss out on that opportunity, and especially in Vegas. So they went the side sliding door. We see multiple swing egress doors there, housed within the unit. We see 4. So once again, that's what you see 99.9% of the time. And a fire condition, that's what you see. Opens up design opportunities, maintains that openness, that tranquility that is found on either side. It's a beautiful opportunity that they kind of worked with here. Another unique application, the parking garage was designated as an S2. the casino. This is the same casino where they were using the firewall to separate when their allowable area had been exceeded. Remember the 2-hour occupancy separation fire barrier wall that connected in between the casino and the parking garage? So looking from the parking garage into the casino, this is the view. With that vertical acting door with the large amount of headroom that's needed. 6 swing egress doors here. So that's what you see in a fire condition. And then looking orientedly from the casino back out into the parking garage, this is obviously what you see in a fire condition once they cut the power to the door. Very unique scenario here, and I hope to impart some. I certainly was astounded when I found this out. So horizontal exit. So this is at the Sky Harbor Phoenix Airport out in Phoenix, obviously. And I know everyone's been to an airport, I'm sure, and you get on those people movers, right? Those people movers where you accelerate your pace for a period of time, right? You're making great time, you're on those things, you're hauling freight. But then they make you get off for that like 15 to 20 foot portion. I always get infuriated, like, why are you making me get off? I can see the next connection of the, why not? Ordinarily, that's because your travel distances have been exceeded. So 250 feet, you need some kind of a separation there. I didn't know that. And you see these doors, you see these kind of, they're housed in their units. That's what it is. They need their allowable area has been exceeded, or the travel distance has been exceeded. This is well over 400 feet here. So they needed some kind of separation in between the two people movers. And I have to just become honest with you. TSA, I just want to it's such a great organization, loving, kind, congenial, wonderful people that run that organization. And they were so kind that they wouldn't let us drop test our doors and let us take a picture of it. So our animations department we're a door company, mind you. They came in, they wanted us, and that's kind of what they came up with. So that's what we think what would happen. We don't really have any idea. Nonetheless, I assume that the AHJ or the drop testers saw the door in action. We'll kind of go in good faith that that's what it looks like in a fire condition. Obviously, you see the standard 307s on either end. And those are the doors that do not go to the tarmac. I always thought that kind of dropped down, nonetheless. So quiz, I'm not going to force, I've never done the quiz myself, not going to force you folks to do it. I've got a few videos that really would clear up things, I think. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask those. But I'm going to go ahead and kind of show how these mechanisms work. And I apologize up front for the music. It's kind of abrasive. Oh, you don't hear it. Outstanding. So we see the vertical coiling doors. Standard stainless steel interior finish. It's a cafeteria setup. And they needed those vision panels, which is apparently a requirement as well. These are your vertical coiling doors with the mag hold, 307Os. See that bottom bar? It sets the door right there, locks the assembly in place, comes from the ceiling clearly. And these are all when they've cut the power to the door. So this is the actual speed by which they would drop in a fire condition. See the principal there. I was at an architecture firm in DC recently, and this individual went to this high school and they freaked out because that was his principal, and he's going nuts on me. But nonetheless, that's kind of an odd scenario. This is that shutter, lightning fast here. Not going to guillotine, which is common misnomer fear architects have with these kind of scenarios. And obviously, we see the locking arm right here as well. The locking arm obviously keeps that door fixed and into its frame, and the rest of the vertical coiling steel comes down, provides that 3-hour separation. And then when they cut the power back, oh, sorry, too early, sorry, trigger happy. And so I got the 2 swing egress doors that swing off of either wall, and the rest of the assembly drops in the ceiling. The school went really hard, clearly. This is all in that one school. It matched the interior finish with that powder-coated assembly as well. There he is, man, the myth, the legend. All right, then obviously that's cutting power back to the door. With this particular usage, they would have to put the swing egress doors back into their place. You just pull the locking arm up and you just push the door back. It's very simplistic, very, very light, good, easy. If I can do it, I know anyone can do it. Pushing it back into that 7-inch recess along the wall. Uh-oh. Now we see them all retracting back. After the power is put back into the door. Maintains that openness with the atrium and everything. You kind of see the point there. That's what we're talking about. This is that interior. Whoops, dropped it. Didn't break it. I'll give you mine if it did. This is that interior exit stair. Use that side sliding door. They wanted to maintain. I think this was at the ground floor at the University of Nebraska. This is that turn that 18-inch radius as well with the egress door on the back edge. Again, cutting that power to the door. Very small head track as well. All the accordion doors are on a single track system. They can turn the 18-inch radius as well. Not a dual track system by any means. Pretty exciting, I know. Especially, I kind of miss the music now. But so, and then we've got another presentation. I don't know how much work you folks do with hurricanes and kind of those kind of tornado zones and creation of safe zones. Nonetheless, we have a full line of products that kind of conform to the ICC and FEMA standards. Driving force behind a lot of these doors were with Hurricane Sandy. The Navy doors up there weren't deployable because the winds were going so quickly or so fast. So this manufacturer came up with these dynamic 110 doors, which are able to be operational at 110-mile-an-hour wind conditions. So very obviously they're rated assemblies as well. But using that, they create a safe zone within this cafeteria. Obviously needed with the shutter, another open area. I don't know. And we've got another door that passes the large missile impact test. I honestly should put that video in this because it's pretty good. It's a 120-mile-an-hour 2x4 of wood being propelled at the door, pierces the door, it maintains within the jambs and everything, maintains the integrity. It's on YouTube. That's probably I'd say the only reason I'd go to YouTube to check out our stuff. Nonetheless, check it out. We have another presentation that's HSW accredited. I'm not certified to give it. Nonetheless, we'd love to come in. Also have that fire-rated fabric, smoke-proof fabric, all of that rating as well. So love to come in. Hopefully see you folks then. You get, if anything, you have to sit through this, but you get the PF Changs, right? So that's a definite benefit. So I appreciate your time and thank you guys for attending. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.